Howdy YouTube, it's your boy PokeNerd123 aka Jose Plays, and I'm just a regular type dude, likes his Pokemon obviously while I'm making this, and I came up on my feed, Tama, she's now known as Tama Hero. I think she changed a lot of her stuff over the years, or her name over the years, and about 5 minutes ago, I got the idea to, I wonder why she's put out a video that says why I quit playing Pokemon, which I kind of have too, but I wonder if this is, I'm pretty sure it's going to relate to like the newer games, and let's go ahead and start this video. There we go.
Hi internet friends! Welcome back to Tama Bites. Usually, this is a series where I discuss individual game mechanics, but I'm kind of co-opting it to talk about some of my early thoughts about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet instead. I usually do these big in-depth analysis type videos when I talk about individual games. Not that long ago, I just released an hour-and-a-half long essay about Pokemon Coliseum. But I really don't like to do those kinds of videos. I
don't think I watched that one, just because I never played Coliseum myself.
And I like to give my ideas time to incubate and mature. Also, I haven't even done 100% of the stuff in the game yet. So just a disclaimer, what I end up talking about in these videos might change down the line. And actually, it'll be pretty interesting to revisit these videos in like 8 years when I finally get around to making an actual essay about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So for now, take what I say in these.
It's Pokemon Scarlet, I think that's the one I bought. So yeah, initially, like I said, I bought the game. I think I played in my first playthrough. I messed up and instead of going to the right side of the map, where I think was the weaker encounters, well, like the lower level encounters, I ended up going to the left side of the map, and that's where I stayed. So like, I think by my first gym, my mons were like level 20, 25, and I think I pretty much completed all of the left side, and my team got to like level 45. And then when I'd run out of the gyms to to like complete on that side, I went to the right side, and like I said, my shit was like got demonetized. RIP. Not that we already had money to begin with, but ended up going to the right side of the map, and the trainers are like level 10 and Le Mans more or less the same way, same level, and I was like, did I mess up? And I was like, yeah, I did, because man, the whole right side was so easy, and the left side I was kind of struggling for a minute, but dang. But I ended up, I think I wanted to restart my playthrough with some other different team, and I have not gone back since. Let's see what she says.
Next few videos with a grain of salt. It's not going to be as researched or as thought out as one of those big review videos. It's more of a first impression. So to start with, It feels a little icky to full-on use my platform to praise the games. These games are pretty obviously the product of an unfair and unsustainable cycle of crunch that's probably hurting the workers who built these games, and is unfair to consumers who are spending twice the amount the Pokemon games used to cost on games that don't meet the level of quality that we would expect to come with a higher price tag.
Yeah, I definitely feel her on that. That obviously you paid for the product, but upon, in this case, a video game, man, my first few days on Scarlet, man, I think more than anything, I just encountered a lot of crashes, and because I was one of those traditional, I guess, Pokemon players from back then, we didn't have the auto save feature, so I always turned mine off. And I forget to save every now and then, so there have been a couple of times where like I get like 2 hours of progress, game crashes randomly, or I don't know, there's just a lot of you know how it went the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, with all the bugs and glitches.
Negative press is one of the few tools that we have to put pressure on Nintendo, Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, whoever it is that is making these decisions, that keeps this big Pokemon franchise machine in motion. And this is kind of our only way to tell them that we think that this is not cool. So I don't even know if it's right to use my voice to put praise at these games out there into the world. At the same time, if I'm being honest, Scarlet and Violet are honestly one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had with a modern Pokemon game. So I'm torn. I want to geek out about the mechanics of this game that I've enjoyed and continue to play, but I also don't want to move the conversation away from accountability. But realistically, I don't know if I can keep making videos about these games and keep talking about these games without that naturally starting to happen. So I guess just try to keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not trying to endorse the circumstances that these games were released under, and since it turns out that they are good games, that only
an anniversary card of my own.
makes it a bigger shit.
I say, Amanda, if you walked in, hopefully I paused the recording correctly. If not, rip.
Game that they're tainted by their rushed production. They could have been amazing, and we will never see them live up to their full potential.
Okay, so yeah, obviously, how the games launched, they weren't polished. A lot of glitches, bugs, crashes. And I think even one of the Nintendo higher-ups, I forget the guy in charge, I forget his name. I think there's a quote of him saying that a game that's unpolished, I forget what the quote says too. The guy, pretty much what the guy was saying is that a unfinished game released to consumers is forever going to be a bad game, no matter what you do post launch to fix it. I forget how the quote goes, but the one game I could think of recently in a few couple years in the game industries is Cyberpunk 2077. If y'all ever played that the first time it came out, holy. Even 2 years later, I played it recently, and it's still buggy. It's still glitchy. So, game companies, you know, we gotta stop just putting stuff out every year. And, hey man, I don't know what y'all have to do, but obviously you gotta take more time, more resources. Hey, do your thing. Get the game cleaned up. Don't release it. Stop with the yearly stuff. Work on different projects or get a different team to do something else. Consumers, just hold on. You gotta understand if we keep allowing this, which we have since I want to say 2013, 2014. I think this is where like it was just notorious of people just dishing out unfinished games, unpolished games, and it's just how we're used to it now.
Now, with all of that out of the way, I'm going to ramble a bit about where I've been with the series since I stopped talking about these games as they were released, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from when I look at these games. The Gen 6 games, X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, were really the last Pokemon games that I played extensively at launch. I did play Sun and Moon and finish them, but it was over a really long period of time, and I never got very far into Ultramoon and didn't finish it. And then when the series moved to the Switch, the same thing kind of kept happening. I'd get Let's Go and Shield as they were released, but I'd end up dropping them pretty quick and never picking them back up again. Just recently, I actually finally almost played all of Let's Go Eevee, but then Scarlet and Violet were released, right before I could get my last gym badge and finish the game. And part of this is on me. I think I got pretty burnt out on Pokemon when I was making content full-time in Gen 6, and I needed a little bit of a break from the yearly Pokemon grind. You know how in Kiki's delivery service she stops being able to fly when she starts doing it professionally? Mm-hmm. It was like that, and I needed to go visit my artist friend in the woods for a while to get my love of flying back.
So I just want to, speak on my side of when I played Gen 6, XY, Omega Ruby Sapphire. X and Y, I played it a decent amount. When Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire LRS came out. So from what I heard, from those games, I thought we were supposed to get the whole Pokemon Emerald treatment, more or less. So, what I love about Emerald or Gen 3, well, Emerald in specific was Battle Frontier. It was probably one of the best post-game, PvE, PvP, end-game trainer battles. Like, it was, you actually got tested in, like, Battle Frontier and Emerald, in my opinion. But that didn't happen. They didn't drop that type of Battle Frontier in ORAS. Gen 7. Oh no, wait, let's do Let's Go Eevee and Pika. Man, I'm a Gen 1er, so I enjoyed those games. And man, I like the shiny hunting in that game, so spent a good time just shiny hunting. And I like the graphics. I liked how they did it on the Switch. It was, to me, it was pretty much a polished game of Pokemon. Let's talk about Gen 7 real quick. Sun and Moon initially, I played it a decent amount, but I think when Ultra Moon and Sun dropped, the story was a little bit different, and because the Necrozma was more incorporated, I believe. It's been a while. I only played it once, but I thought the Ultra series was better than the initial Gen 7 launch. Maybe then again, that's more biased because I like a sci-fi, future alien stuff type deal. And I like how the Ultra Beasts they were aliens. They were different beings from different dimensions. You're hunting them down. And then you're doing this timey-wimey space travel and stuff where, like, Necrozma took the light of a different world. And, Pokemon, was it Sword and Shield? Dude, those are boring to me. Like, I played them initially, and I think I completed, like, one playthrough, and that was it, man. I didn't play that much. I didn't enjoy it. I think that game was... I think when they first dropped for us, or the trailers and all that, the first area, they polished it. They made it colorful. They made the graphics look good. And then after that, it went downhill, man. Like, and then once you got to the wild area, was it? Oh my god, that thing was so laggy. And I can't say it's the game's fault. Because you also, well, not fault, but like, you can't reach, 60 FPS and all that. Better quality and performance, because what the Switch had back then, his power as the graphics and all that, the graphics card and the CPU, so they're kind of set back from that. But back to Tamara. Well, Tamara.
Except my artist friend was Pokemon Crystal, and I stayed for 3 years. But also, it was partially that the series was mechanically moving away from what I enjoy about it. You have heard me say this a million times by now if you've seen my other videos, but my favorite thing about Pokemon games is that you have a billion different options for building parties, and that you can get a lot out of each game on repeated playthroughs by building a ton of different teams. You can make character building decisions and decide who your trainer is through which Pokemon they choose to raise, and it's a lot of fun. Just for example, in that Let's Go Eevee playthrough I was in the middle of, I did a run where I played as a junior trainer. I could only use Pokemon that past junior trainer females / picnickers have used in other Pokemon games. And it was really fun to come up with a story for this trainer as I went. Like, I decided she's in the Eevee Scouts, which is why she carries an Eevee around with her. She has a history with the Pewter City Science Museum because her troop took frequent field trips there. And whenever she met another junior trainer, she knew them from some past Eevee Scout event. And it was really fun to make up my own headcanon for her. Each of her different Pokemon catches was for a different merit badge, and she was obsessed with getting all of the merit badges.
So I like that. Like, I guess recently I started venturing into Pokemon manga, or well, like fan made, and I think I forget who the creator was. There's some pretty cool, awesome fanfics of them where like the one I want to talk about is about red and green and blue and all the stuff they like the type of story they present. I guess it kind of carries into me when I play Pokemon. Like, hey, like she said, who's gonna be on my team? Why are they on my team? Etc. The type of mons you could catch. Why this certain mon is on your team. The best way I could put this is if you go to YouTube and type in Pokemon Red fan-made video, look for a YouTube called Pedro. I forget his last name, but he pretty much puts the whole Pokemon Red, like Red Blue storyline into a fanfic video. And I like the story he presents with the trainers and all that. And just watch it just to see, what I mean, what I'm talking about. And yeah, also I'm playing this at the same time we're watching Tama Hero.
And I was determined to beat the Elite Four with unevolved Pokemon in my party like a real NPC would. So I ended up grinding a ton of candies and levels to help me do that. And maybe this is completely insane and no one but me plays Pokemon games this way. But this is kind of how I've always played Pokemon. You can get a lot of mileage out of the games this way because it's easy to keep coming up with new characters and new party combos to try out. And it seemed like Pokemon games up until Gen 6 were built almost intentionally to make this kind of play both possible and interesting, and to reward it and reinforce it mechanically. You might not be able to add a new Pokemon and quickly catch them up in levels to your party from anywhere in the game, but if you pre-planned an interesting team of 6, the pieces would kind of fall into place and you could create unique challenges for yourself. Different parts of the game would be easy or hard depending on who you used and where, because the games were balanced pretty intentionally to have different difficulty curves at different points in the game. And these choices really made a difference in the trajectory of your journey. My favorite game to do this in was Ruby and Sapphire, because depending on who my team was, I might get stumped at Watson, or Flannery, or Winona, or Liza and Tate, and I would have to stop and figure out how to beat them with the Pokemon I was using. So I've replayed Ruby and Sapphire probably a billion times. The difficulty of the game isn't too hard for kids, but it is balanced in a particular way. So it would peak and valley in response to your team building decisions and it would feel like they mattered. So with the introduction of the EXP share, and some other changes about the progression of the games, it got harder to do this kind of thing. Each game after Gen 6 has handled this differently in their own unique ways, but generally the overarching thing that they have in common is 1, the game balance being a bit more leveled out, and 2, leveling up Pokemon is no longer the result exclusively of just using that Pokemon. For example, the experience share now being on automatically, and
I didn't like that.
Applied to every member of your team in every fight means
when did that
start
really Gen
easy
6?
to level up Pokemon and new team members without ever using them once, and no additional effort is required to add any new team members at any point in the game. I used Let's Go as an example of how I like to play Pokemon games, but it was actually a really bad example, because a majority of the experience that you earn is tied to catching Pokemon, and has nothing to do with actually battling with your team at all.
Dude. Yeah, dude, is it when we got to who was the Twitch streamer I was watching, and I think he was like shiny hunting for a Growlithe, and it took him such a long while to get the Growlithe, but I think his team just ended up becoming overpowered because all the experience and all that, and it creates this imbalance of like, why even why even battle the trainers for experience? Just go for a shiny hunt and get all that XP.
Which meant that in my junior trainer NPC playthrough, just by catching a ton of wild Pokemon, my unevolved team of weak Pokemon was extremely OP and overleveled without me ever having to get good at using them or learning to strategize, like compensating for their lack of stats with battle items, for example. In Sword and Shield, Raid Den started rewarding experience candies, and this could be done before you even had a single badge. So you could basically pick whatever level you wanted anyone in your party to be at. And again, the end result result is that the story of your trainer progressing through the game and the story of your Pokemon becoming stronger gets uncoupled. And this in combination with, in most of these new games, there being very few challenges where being higher level was not the answer to every problem, who you used in your party in any of these games at any point ended up mattering less and less to your experience of the game. It's pretty common in most of these new Pokemon games for enemy trainers to carry 3 or fewer Pokemon. And in some of these games, it was really difficult to stay at a level where your Pokemon weren't one-shotting everything. And as this was changing, the storytelling was also growing. And while I definitely appreciate a lot of the advances in storytelling that there have been across these games, they're definitely more reliant on cutscenes than they used to be, which makes replaying the content less fun and less rewarding. The end result of all this was that every playthrough of each of these games ended up feeling very homogenous, and whenever I tried to make a team building decision, in the same way that I used to, where I was trying to define who my trainer was through my Pokemon choices, it never ended up feeling like it had an actual impact on my experience of the game anymore. So point being, in a lot of the 3DS and Switch Pokemon games, they handle team building, leveling, and difficulty balancing really differently than they did in past Pokemon games. And this was, I'm sure, a deliberate decision. After all, most people are not insane like I am, and they don't replay each Pokemon game a billion times. So, to most people, being able to easily add a new member to your team and level it up in a single playthrough is a positive. And to Game Freak,
I think for Gen 1, 2, and 3, I think a lot of us like going back and playing those games. And if you could ask me what my favorite generation or game possibly was, Pokemon series, it's either Emerald or Platinum. I feel like Gen 4 had had a really good story. People gonna say it's their opinion, whatever. But for me, the story was really good. Post game with like hunting legendaries and all that was pretty nice. I mean, Gen 5 was pretty alright. I liked the issue was it's not an issue, but if I play Gen 4 game, I have to commit time for it. Or like it's actually an actual journey. Like the amount of travel you do in that game, it's a lot. I want to speak about Gen 5 real quick. When Gen 5 dropped, it was regarded as one of the worst generations ever. I have no idea why, but now a lot of people like Gen 5. People can't make up their mind, but I remember for a couple years, Gen 5 was regarded as one of the worst generations ever. I think it's mostly because the was it Garbodor? The design, they picked on that one Mon from the whole 151. I think that was the only other generation where all the Pokemon were brand new. At the initial start, which is another thing that the thing that I want to pick apart on the Pokemon games after that it's always, you always get like I think maybe 50, not always 50, but there's only a handful of new Pokemon, some legendaries, and then they started adding regional. And I think if you could make about 100 to 120 new Mons each generation and mix in some regional not exclusive but regional Mons like Galarian, Slope, Snorlax. I'm gonna call him Slowbro. But let's get back to the video.
Not needing to so carefully and meticulously balance each area of the game and difficulty probably has saved them a lot of effort and time and development that they could put into other areas of the game. So instead of encouraging repeat playthroughs to use a bunch of different Pokemon, now it's encouraged to use a bunch of different Pokemon in one playthrough. So now, instead of replaying the game as different people with different teams of 6 Pokemon over and over, you're now encouraged to play each Pokemon game just once, but use as many different Pokemon in each playthrough as you want, because it's so easy and accessible to add new team members and catch them up. And while I definitely understand that this is a result of the game's priorities evolving, and while I don't personally actually think that these were bad decisions at all, because they make sense in terms of evolving the series and moving things forward, to me personally this just actively dismantles the thing I enjoyed most about playing Pokemon games, so I found the newer games really boring. It was just really hard for me to get invested in my party or care about the game at all if it made literally no difference who I used at what point in the game, and I rarely had to do any work to get new party members caught up. And again, this may be a problem only to me, but the shrinking number of Pokemon available in each game with the limited national dex, and migration not really being so much of a thing anymore, limited my choices in terms of building the kinds of characters that I was interested in building. There was also a lack of post-game content, especially in Gen 6, in terms of continuing to play after the main story. So you were encouraged to catch more Pokemon in each playthrough, but you had less and less to do with them that wasn't competitive battling, which I am super not into. So I ended up dropping each of these games and not really wanting to...
I used to be into Pokemon VGC, all that. I think Gen 5 I went pretty hardcore. Like on Smogon. What was the website called? It wasn't Smogon. I forgot that Pokemon site where you could make a team and pretty much battle. Is it Smogon? I forget. Smogon Ladder? I forget. There was a website where I just spent hours and hours building teams, climbing the ladder in there. I forget the name of the website. But I'm not one... Since Gen 7, I believe. No, Gen 6. I stopped playing VGC competitive Mon because it's been done. So whenever I play Pokemon, it's purely for the story, the playthrough, see what's new, maybe make some battle ready Pokemon. I don't know why, when I never battle anyone. But I'm not gonna spend hundreds of hours making new teams and etc. in each new Pokemon game after Gen 6.
To pick them back up again, because I could just go back to older Pokemon games and replay those as many times as I wanted, which is what I've been doing. So then I tried to start to figure out...
Or you could not go to not emulators and not play a recreation of your not favorite old Pokemon game. Not
how to approach these new Pokemon games differently. If I can't enjoy these the old way I used to play, maybe I can find fun in the new way of doing things instead that's more in line with the way that these games were actually designed to be fun. So I would give it my best shot and try raising lots of different Pokemon in one playthrough, but it felt aimless to me still. What they were going for just wasn't really clicking with me, and I felt kind of frustrated by it. That was until the series moved to open world. In Pokemon Legends Arceus,
that was a good
Arceus,
one.
If you insist on being correct, and also in Scarlet and Violet, suddenly...
They told us it was Arceus when it dropped eons ago. So, make up y'all's mind. But yeah, that was a good game. Up to the point where I realized, did we have any trainers that we battled? I don't feel like we... can't even recall. But I don't feel like we battled trainers, and there was no online, and so I was like, screw this game. But I put in a couple good amount of hours in Arceus. The open world was pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
The catching and
for what it
using
was.
lots of guys in a single playthrough was actually fun, because finding them in the world to begin with was the fun part. Exploring the world, seeing what guys show up where, not knowing who you'd find behind every rock and around every corner, and actually catching them all was exciting and fun in a way that it had never been before. Just by making the hunt itself a bigger part of the game, by making it less predictable and tying it more directly to how you traverse the world itself, it clicked for me finally. Now I understand understand why you would want to catch and use, but not necessarily get invested in a ton of different Pokemon in one playthrough, because the Pokemon themselves are more of a reward for exploring the environment than they ever have been before. And the main gameplay isn't battling and getting your Pokemon stronger. Now it's actually catching them all. More than ever, I think this new style of gameplay really captures the thing that Pokemon was inspired by. That feeling of exploring the woods with your friends and collecting bugs. And it's not really because you want to keep a massive collection of bugs forever, or because you really want to watch bugs fight each other, but because the act of looking for and finding them in itself is what's fun. And in a weird way, I now feel like I understand what Sword and Shield were trying to do better, having now seen all this stuff work so well and so intuitively in these new games. The raids, the leveling system, the wild area, I've now seen each of those ideas reach their full potential. I've played games where I found them fun to engage with, and I would find it more interesting to look back at the previous entries and see the small iterative steps that they were taking to get to this point. And wanting to go back and play Sword and Shield is an impulse that I have not had since the games came out.
Me either,
which
dude.
brings us full circle
Me
to
either.
why I don't review games when they come out
that.
anymore. Having the context of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet gives me a lot more insight into what the goals of those changes were in Sword and Shield, and how to engage with them in a way that's actually fun. And I probably would have regretted making a review of Sword and Shield after only playing it the way that I used to play Pokemon games and not finding that fun at all. I definitely had that issue when I made reviews of X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire right after they were released. I played through each game in like 3 days and then wrote a review. I feel like the opinions that I expressed in those videos didn't represent how I felt about the games even like a year later, and I don't think I ever want to repeat that. So I'm looking forward to revisiting those games in the future too. Today, while I ask people to subscribe and hit that bell icon and send me more suggestions for future Tama Bites, I'll do a little show and tell and show off my weird Pikachu Denpo trophy. We found this at a thrift store in Osaka. This was given out to people
That's pretty
who
cool.
sent telegrams back in like 2007, and I guess somebody didn't want theirs, so it's mine now.
Just sell it? Damn. GG. That's a pretty cool video. You know, discussing how Pokemon games are. I guess for me, I guess we're getting a lot older. And I've been watching her since a couple years now. May 2000, I don't know. Like, I always watch the PokeTubers like her, Jaywitz, Shofu. Trying to recall the other ones. You know, they all started with like doing the creepypasta or like glitches and all that. But Shofu was like more like playthroughs and online battling. But point being is that I've kind of grown, and I think all of us have grown into like, I don't know, we don't mess with Pokemon like that nowadays. Oh, yeah. If y'all watched this whole video, appreciate it. You'll have a good one.